Hey everyone, it's Ian Benjamin and Black Data Professional Network. So this is exclusive content for BDPN members such as yourself. And today I am blessed to have my buddy, my brother from another mother, if you like, for BDPN perspective. We've got Tolu Adebekun. Tolu, if you don't know, is co-founder. It's just my right-hand man in terms of elevating the BDPN, celebrating successes, networking, education, career opportunities, live events, etc. And so Tolu is the first guest in a series of day in the life interviews with Black data professionals. So Tolu is the head of data visualization at Sky TV, that we all know. And so he's going to give us a bit of a summary, some bullet points, answer some bullet point questions about how we got to where he is today. So without further ado, we're just going to dive straight into it. So, why did you choose data as a profession, first of all?
Good question. So thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be here. So do you know what, actually, I would say I didn't actually choose data. Data chose me. When I came into Sky, I came in on a graduate scheme and it was a rotational scheme. And I had a rough idea of what I thought I wanted to do. And I thought I wanted to be in comms, sales and marketing. But one of my rotations was actually in analytics and in data. And it was a really short rotation, but I absolutely loved it. And when I got into sales and marketing, I absolutely hated it. So data in some ways actually chose me. It was
Right.
quite.
So what was it
It
about it?
wasn't.
Obviously, what being all the numbers, all the spreadsheets. What were you looking at? What made you? What kind of landed you into the data space?
To be honest, it was problem solving. I loved problem solving. I loved exploring the data, understanding it, pulling out insight, and using that to solve real world problems. So when I was coming off my grad scheme, I had to do a test. So I'd kind of picked that, okay, analytics is what I want to do. And I had to do a test, and they set up this test. And the feedback that I got was that it was one of the best kind of results that they'd seen from that test. So kind of for me, it really showed that I'm quite a natural in terms of some of the things around data, in terms of looking through what's there, figuring out what's good, figuring out what's useless, and building a story. So
Right.
that was really
So
where it
were you,
started for me.
so just to kind of set that up, so were you, or to expand on that, so were you quite analytical at your school days back at school with numbers, mathematics?
I'm Nigerian by background, so numbers has kind of been drummed slash beaten into me as a child, right? So I think that grounding kind of helped. When I look back at it, I was
Beating
very
into is
entrepreneur.
funny, man. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think every
um,
black origin. I mean, I'm not African. I'm West Indian, Caribbean, and
yeah.
I've got that beaten into me as well. I've got
Yeah, yeah.
sort of
It's a
scars to
common
prove it.
theme. It's a
Yeah, yeah,
common theme.
100%.
So So I think that gave me a good analytical grounding in terms of looking at numbers, trying to figure out different ways to do it. My dad was always very big on you have to show your workings. So that process of step by step walking through something, I think
Right.
that's a lot of where that came from. And also I was very entrepreneurial as a kid and always trying to understand why things work, why things didn't. So I think all of those things together really formed who I am as an analyst and as a data professional.
Gotcha. Okay, super. Thanks a lot for that. Thanks a lot. So the usual steps, SQL, Python, did you learn those as well?
So when I was starting my career, Python was not really that big of a thing at the time. That's been more over the last probably 3 or 4 years that we've
Mm.
really seen
5 years
that
or so.
that come up. Yeah, probably 5 years. So I think when I was growing, it was more SQL. That was really what
Right.
I
Yeah.
got to grips with.
Okay, gotcha. All right, superb. And so what does your day look like now? What like today, as in today,
Mm.
data visualization. So obviously making data visually to be visually understandable for individuals that are using that. So what are you doing at the moment in time from that? What are you working on? What are you bringing to life? What are you bringing to visuals with data?
So my role, so the role of my team is that we have three prongs to what we do. So one prong is enablement. So that's about licensing. It's about understanding what we need to do for upgrades. It's about building the best application that we can for the people who we serve. Then we've got learning and development, which is about building and delivering training courses across the whole organization. So we've started from nothing and built up something where, we're delivering 100 courses each year to different people around the business. And then the last part is consultancy. So I have a team of consultants who go out to different parts of the business and they understand what are they trying to do, help them with ways to do it, to automate it, to tell the best stories with data across the whole business. So my job, thankfully, is quite varied. So I work across those 3 different areas, working with my team to build strategies for how can we improve our training offering? How can we get more people involved with what we're doing? How can we get into different areas of the business that are going to have a massive impact in terms of what Sky's doing in the future? So my day is very varied. Because I'm a head of department, I'm a bit less in the detail and the doing, and it's more about working with my team to empower them, enable them, unblock whatever it is that they're trying to do across those 3 different areas.
Right, okay, cool, got you. Right, fantastic. And so what advice would you give to somebody up and coming, or somebody who's got an interest in getting into data, or somebody who's 3 or 4 years in as an analyst, perhaps maybe engineering or other areas? What would you suggest is critical for them to do to be successful?
Probably a few things. So one thing I would say is, when we're growing up, they always said curiosity killed the cat. It's so untrue. Curiosity is a massive superpower. The more curious you can be, the better you can be as a data professional, because we have access to the data, we have access to the business, and we can bring the 2 things together. So people in the business, often they have hunches or they have gut feels, but they don't really have the data to back it up. If you can go and have curious conversations with people, understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, you can add a lot of value by bringing the data alongside what they're doing and really making their lives a lot easier. So curiosity would be one thing. I would say I got some really good advice when I was early in my career about my job basically is to make my boss's job easier and to make my boss look really good. So how can you find ways to look at what your manager is doing, or even your head of department, your director, whoever is in your upline, look at what they're doing and make it easier for them? Are there reports that they have to do on a regular basis that you could actually write some Python script to generate that on an automated basis? Is there a dashboard that you could build for them so that instead of every week asking for the same numbers or not being able to explore, they can actually do that for themselves? If you can enable self-serve, you'll become very, very valuable. And what I was told is that my job is to make my own job redundant. So make it so that either other people can do my job, or there's a machine that does those things that I was going to do, because when I have that space and that time, I can do more value-added activities. So instead of me crunching through, hundreds of spreadsheets for a report, that automatically happens. I can think of strategies to implement the findings from that. So it's really about how can you add the most value as possible. And for me, that's by being curious, automating things, making your bosses and his boss's life easier and making them look good. Because in that situation, people get promoted, everyone moves up a rung. So obviously that's in an ideal world, and we don't always live in an ideal world. But I have this philosophy of you either pay me now or pay me later. So either you're going to recognize the skill set that I have and the value that I bring, or when I go into the next interview, then I can talk about what I've done, the value that it's added, and I can get my pay that way. So for me, it's only a matter of time before you start getting paid what you're worth. But sometimes people want to be getting paid more, but not do more. So for me, it's kind of, you have to be the other way around. Do more, and then you get paid more. So I know this is a real big thing of, well, they're not recognizing me, they're not promoting me. Maybe that's not the right place for you to be. And there will be somewhere that will recognize that, and they will promote that over time.
Right, gotcha. Okay, cool. Very interesting. Very good take on it. Very good take on it. I mean, a lot of individuals do want to run before they can walk. And especially from a recruitment perspective, last year, 2022, 2021, 2022, massive surge. Everyone was hiring. And I mean, there's still a lot of activity in the data space now, but there was a massive increase in salaries, like 30% salaries, sometimes more. People changing jobs really relatively quickly over that period of time. And individuals did want to run before they can walk, or they wanted that salary because that's an increase, because they saw someone else had that increase in salary, and perhaps they did all the time. They hadn't earned that that significant increase. So just food for thought there. Food for thought. Okay, and have you had to navigate racism within your journey to date? I mean, you've been at Sky for 10, 12 years, so maybe not there, but I mean, or maybe you have. What's your take on that?
I would say in a working environment, it's not something I've really encountered. I think it's more been kind of out on the streets that I would have said I've encountered racism. I think that, we've spoken before on the podcast about where I grew up, where I went to school, and for me being quite comfortable, and that's my privilege in terms of being the only ethnic person in the room or whatever it is. So I think I probably have never
From memory,
really.
like 1,000 kids, right? Yeah, there's 1,000 pupils, and you and
Yeah,
your sister were the only two black kids, and that was in Winchester, sort of like
Chichester.
Chichester,
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of neck of the woods.
So for me, maybe it's not something that I see as much, if that makes sense. I think my thing is that I've always focused on adding as much value as possible. I also recognize that I've been very blessed with great managers, right? So people who racism is so far from their being. So one of my first like real manager, he's Indian. And then my second manager, he was South African, or he is South African. And coming out of apartheid, he was very keen to not be in that environment, which is part of why he moved to England. So I've been very blessed to have leaders who it's so far away from who they are, what they would ever do. And if anybody was ever to even hint towards anything like that, I know they would have absolutely obliterated them, right? So I've had great backing from day one, but not everybody is as privileged to have that as I have been.
Gotcha. Okay, cool, superb. Just to wrap this up, what is next for Tolu? What do you want to? What's your goal? What are you looking to achieve next? I mean, you've done considerably well, but what's next for you, do you think?
I think for me, I really want to grow in my leadership capability. I have recently started a podcast in the last few months, and it's about emotional intelligence and leadership. I would love to get more.
It's about what? Sorry, say it slowly. It's about what?
It's about emotional intelligence and leadership. So it's about empowering people to lead themselves and lead others better through emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I know about it, but I mean, what's the podcast called? How can individuals find it?
It's called Dunamis EQ. It's a bit of a mouthful to say and spell, so I'm actually thinking of changing the name. So it's called Dunamis EQ, and Dunamis is the Greek word for power, basically. So it's basically empowering through EQ is the concept. So I started that recently. I've had some really interesting guests on, and I learn a lot from doing it. So for me, it's all about learning and growing in leadership. And then I'm also thinking about doing some speaking engagements and things like that, whether it's talking about data, leadership, or resilience through things like sports. For me, to answer your original question, I really want to grow in empowering people to be their best selves, whatever that looks like.
That's superb. Wonderful. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Tony. I mean, it's a short little interview, some bullet points of value for our members, and I hope you all get some value out of that. Thanks very much, Tolu Adebekun.
Thanks so much for having me, and I look forward to hearing some of the other day in the lives.
In truth, indeed, they are coming forthwith. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.